Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonny Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. This week I talk with Cantor Tamar Havilio, who started last month as the new cantor at Bet Shalom. We talk about the journey that it took to get to Minnesota mid-pandemic, what drew her back to a pulpit job, and her family's excitement for winter, even in Minnesota, on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Cantor Tamar Havilio, welcome to the Who the Folk podcast.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Minnesota. You are, first of all, I guess you are the new cantor. Start there at Bet Shalom. So Mazel Tov on that. Recently you spent a year not far from there at Temple Israel. What is it about Minnesota that was so appealing that you wanted to move here and, take this full-time opportunity?
So 2 years ago, when I came on a sabbatical, actually, a working sabbatical to Temple Israel, I felt like it was a great opportunity for us as a family. My husband had never lived in the U.S. He's from Jerusalem, 20 generations.
Wow.
So in 2011, we took a sabbatical, actually a working sabbatical where I worked in Toronto. And we had such a great time. And in Israel at Hebrew Union College, you can take a year off and they hold your position. So after 7 more years, I could have taken it earlier, but the opportunity arose at Temple Israel and they needed someone interim. And in that year, I think we really I fell back in love with my home, my other home. I consider also Jerusalem a home now since I lived there for 18 years. And we just fell in love with the Jewish community, but also the lakes, the kind of piney woods that I grew up with as a child in Wisconsin. And when the opportunity arose that I saw that Bet Shalom was looking for a cantor, I kind of jumped at the opportunity.
So while you were in Jerusalem, since 2008, you had when you became the head of cantorial studies at on the Jerusalem campus at Hebrew Union College. That's a big deal position and a big deal job. What was it that drew you back to the pulpit and being at one synagogue as opposed to the teaching side?
I have to say that it was going back to the pulpit that brought me back, so to speak. So just being, again, in people's lives from age, 0 to, I guess my oldest congregant at Temple Israel was 109. So it was really being, I kind of thrive in a synagogue, and that's why I never went to teach because I didn't like being in a congregation. I went to teach because I wanted to teach other people how amazing it is and how to connect text to congregants from all ages. So that connection of kind of how you say the text and live the text was always very important to me. And I studied it in depth in performance studies at New York University Tisch School of the Arts as a second degree after I became a cantor, because I was always fascinated with this very kind of, how do I pray and lead prayer at the same time? And my answer, coming from a theater background, was you have to always pray when you lead, but you always have to just believe the text, understand the text. So that's why I went to teach, actually. And so when I came back in a congregational setting at Temple Israel, I fell in love again with that work as being a cantor in a congregation.
Did it take you a little while to sort of get used to that rhythm again of being in a congregation?
Well, first of all, being in a rhythm in a congregation right now is not quite what anybody expects.
No, I was actually thinking about your time at Temple Israel.
No, and that was what astounding to me. It's like, it's like riding a bike. I just fell back into it very easily because I love it so much. Yeah.
Okay, now fast forward to right now. Obviously now there's nothing rhythmic about right now, is there?
There isn't, although I'll give you an example. On Friday, I was with Rabbi Jill Crimmings with the Tots in their Shabbat kind of gathering in the morning and I was so struck by on Zoom how even I think it was like a 3-year-old was covering her eyes because she heard us talking about Shabbat and the candles. And I was so struck that even in this Zoom age of trying to deal with, the pandemic that we're in, there was so much meaning and so much joy in these little tots that I really it was really profound to me in those little eyes, how much we all can do. I mean, difficult as it is to do these things all in technology, how much there is so much potential, which is very exciting.
So I did like that. I guess it was as you and I are speaking a week ago at your first staff meeting, if you will, where you and the rabbis and the executive director are all standing in the parking lot, appropriately distanced, all wearing masks, and that is your first staff meeting as the cantor at Bet Shalom.
Well, originally, it was kind of hard to figure out how to start that first day. And so because of the setup in my house, and I have 3 children at home, I wasn't quite set up for an office in my house yet. And so I kind of I said, well, why don't I just start, and I'll kind of come in the parking lot and we can and we all said, we have to mark this moment. And actually that was the moment. We said Shehachianu, the prayer for, reaching this time. And it was really powerful, actually, just to stand there in the parking lot.
And it was just such a cool photo. And it is so very of this moment that we're all living through.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, I completely agree that, it should be marked with Shehachianu, because obviously it's a big moment for you and a big moment for the congregation, but also that you're masked and 6 feet apart. It is just very 2020.
Very 2020. And someone said on Facebook that it looked like an album cover. So.
Be a good album cover. I mean, somebody's going to use that for an album cover before this year is done. I feel like some sort of photo like that. So talk a little bit about the experience of moving. It's not like you're just moving houses across town. You're moving across the globe in this moment of, coronavirus and upheaval and discomfort and disquiet and everything. How was that experience for you and your family?
So when this all happened and I took the position, it was kind of before the airports were totally closed. And I remember that Rabbi David Lockett said to me, I have a boat. I'll send you a boat if we have to. And I have to say that there were days where I thought he would have to send the boat because, every day was different. In April, we bought tickets on Air Canada because that was the time when I thought, I don't want to fly through New York. New York really in a bad place. And the Canadians were being much more, how should we say this? They were listening to their government much more than we Americans. And so we had tickets through Toronto to Minneapolis. And then a month later, they canceled the ticket to Minneapolis. And they said, you have to go through Chicago because only a few airports are open to take in international travelers. So then, so we were prepared to do that, and we rented a van, actually from O'Hare. And my mom lives in Madison, so we were going to go and wave to my mom in Madison and go on up to Minneapolis. And then a week before we were leaving, mind you, I'm also traveling with my dog, Charlie. Okay, so that adds to the drama because so they sent me an email and they said, your flight to Chicago, they didn't say anything. They actually just sent me an itinerary. This is your itinerary. And luckily I decided to print the itinerary, and I looked at the itinerary and it said your ticket to Canada or to Toronto is on time. You land at 4:40 in Toronto, and your next flight to Chicago is at 8 a.m. the next day. So I called Air Canada and they said, well, you can't take this flight because you're not Canadians. And I said, well, no, but what do you expect us to do? We're flying a week from now. We had shipped our stuff already.
Oh, no.
All of our stuff was, like all of our, the dog was in, I had done all those papers for the dog, which by the way, nobody ever looked at the papers for the dog when I entered America. But basically then they said, okay, so we can put you on a United flight for no extra cost through Newark to Minneapolis. And then I called United and they said, but we're not flying animals right now. And Air Canada was the only company that was flying animals in cargo. So like underneath, because my dog is 30 pounds, not 8 pounds.
Yep.
So anyway, you know the story. So then they said to me, well, we have 3 flights that evening from Toronto to America: San Francisco, Los Angeles, and LaGuardia.
Oh, no.
So we got tickets to LaGuardia. I mean, we went to Toronto first, mind you. And then we back to LaGuardia. And then we rented a van from New York. And luckily, I lived in New York. So I've done that trek on I-80 to, to Milwaukee is where I used to drive to. And so we actually drove from New York to Pennsylvania. We stayed in Pennsylvania. Then my sister lives in Indiana. So we stayed with her in Indiana and then moved on we stayed in a tent in her backyard, actually.
That's awesome. That's so great.
It was awesome, actually, because we had a barbecue and we were all, but we were seeing each other, which was exciting at this time. Yeah. And she was one of the reasons why we came a little earlier was to settle, but also she was married on July 18th, which is my husband and I's anniversary.
That's lovely.
In Rockford, Illinois. And so we made it then to Madison, Wisconsin to say hi to my mom from her driveway. And then on July 3rd, just in time for the 4th in Minneapolis, we came into our place here in Minnetonka.
What a ride.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't expect it would be an easy answer to that question, but wow. That is quite the
So every single day was kind of a different. I really didn't believe I would get here, and I seriously kept saying to Rabbi Lockitz, listen, if I don't get there by July something, I'll do this from Zoom, but I'm really trying, and we were determined to get to Minnesota, and we did it. We arrived and we're here, and every day is a different kind of day in the sense of what I'm learning, but that's what it is.
That's amazing. I mean, and obvious dedication, by everybody involved to make it happen.
Yeah. Pure dedication. You're right. You're right.
So, I mean, fortunately, you could make that drive and, Canada didn't keep you, locked, they didn't lock you out and there was another way to do it. But unfortunately you had to do the leg through New York that you were hoping not to.
Yeah. But by then New York was fine.
That's true. That's true.
It was okay. It was okay. I mean, we didn't want to stay in New York. We actually had the opportunity to stay in New York. A friend of mine offered her apartment in Brooklyn because she's not there. She's in Israel right now. So, but we were like, it's not the time to tour in New York right now.
No, it's time to just hit the road and head west. Yep.
And Israel, by the way, was really in good shape at first. And as my husband said, he says Israelis really are good at emergency situations in any kind of bad situation.
Yeah.
But for the long run, they're not. So, and as you see anywhere, it's hard for us to seriously lock down, and what that means for both economies and human beings and human beings' mental health. And so there has to be, my sister is in healthcare. She's a vice president of a hospital in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And she said to me, she says, we can't not live with the virus. We have to deal with living with the virus. And within boundaries and within rules, we have to figure out what that means.
Yeah.
So
That's very true. So how obviously you've only been here as you and I are speaking, it's less than a month back in the Midwest. How are your three sons and husband sort of adapting to this new life?
So my three kids, day by day. So today, was a field trip. They went to Costco. That's very exciting. And because, we have nothing like that in Israel. So Costco's like a Disneyland of some sort. And even the carts are bigger than anywhere they've seen in their lives. So
I'm sure.
um, we're just dealing. I thought it was the other day, actually, there was, Temple, the youth group had an event outside, social distance with mask. And my older son went to it and he said, that was so awesome, Mom, because I was with kids my age.
Oh, that's nice.
And so I think that kind of, that's the sentiment, is that my kids really want to be with kids their age. They're brothers, they love each other, but fight like cats and dogs too. And so, but yeah, they're contacting their friends that they had before.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's great. And again, after, having spent a year here, they sort of, I mean, they may not know like a full lay of the land, but they definitely, have some people. And it's much easier to when you're that age in this day and age, with technology and all, it's easier to stay in touch with people anyway. Like even when you go back to Israel, you could still reconnect easily.
Yeah, when we found out that we were coming, we immediately connected my son, who just had his bar mitzvah, with his friends that he met when he was here the last time.
That's excellent.
Yeah, and so that's really great. And since they're so savvy at technology, it's really been great for them to do that, even though I will say that they really want to see their friends in person.
For sure. I mean, that's obviously, I'm sure, having a 15 and 11-year-old myself, I fully, understand and see every day how hard it is to not be able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a significant challenge. I totally get that. What is it about Bet Shalom that made this the right opportunity for you? Obviously, it's you could have gone to you could have looked for a position at any synagogue, but what was it about was it the synagogue, the rabbis, the being back in the Midwest? Obviously, you're a Midwest native.
Yeah.
What was all of the above, some of the above?
I think I would say all of the above, but it was really kind of my meeting with, first of all, Rabbi Jill Crimmings was a student of mine in my early years at HUC. And she has sent me B'nai Mitzvah families in Israel. And so we've kept in contact. And I became very close with one of the Bet Shalom families, and did their two girls' bat mitzvahs in Israel. And it's kind of funny because I felt a connection with Bet Shalom all along. And when I met with Rabbi Locke, he was on a trip to Israel when I met with him to talk about the position. And we just, as we were talking, it was just a kind of automatic connection we had about synagogue life and kind of our philosophies. And I don't know, it just felt home to me. And I came in a very kind of difficult time too, right before the lockdown in Israel. I came here in right before Purim. I came to interview.
Okay.
And I remember the rabbis saying, "We're just so grateful you came." It says a lot that you actually came and did this trip during this time. Maybe, maybe it says I'm crazy, um, but it really meant a lot. And so when I came here and I met with the committees, and they knew I had experience in this area. And many of them had met me before when I just had my little short time at Temple Israel. So, and by the way, I'm so blessed to know and just adore the community, the Jewish community here, and the rabbis and cantors in all the synagogues and Jewish educators. I just got to know a lot of them, and Rabbi Adam Spilker and Rachel Spilker, we were in school together at HUC.
Oh, that's excellent. They're great people.
Amazing. And so we grew up together in the movement, so to speak.
Sure.
So yeah, it's like coming home in so many ways, and a new home at Bet Shalom.
Does it feel sort of like, obviously you're not from Minnesota, you're from, Milwaukee. Does it feel, sort of like coming home, in that it's, the upper Midwest, or there's some similarities between the two
Oh my gosh.
cities?
Yeah. And I lived here for 3 years of my life. And like I said, I think they were very, very formative years. I was 9, 10, 11.
Okay. Yeah, those are big years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do remember very, very cold winters.
But you're, you're used to them. You're from the area, sort of, at least.
Yes, I'm used to that, but I think actually Minneapolis has colder winters than Wisconsin.
Yeah, or a little further north. That's true.
And colder than Canada, Toronto.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Toronto's got the lake, and that Lake Ontario tends to moderate that a little bit.
I work with someone from Winnipeg in Israel, and she was always telling me that Winnipeg and Minneapolis, we had similar winters.
I don't think we get quite that cold.
Right, exactly.
I mean, maybe they would like to think it's similar to what it is here, but yeah, I don't know about that.
By the way, I fell in love with an Israeli who loves snow. So when we were here, a year ago, I was so amazed with my husband, who actually, maybe it's Jerusalemites that grow up with, if it snows in Israel, it snows on Mount Hermon and Jerusalem. So, and it's a holiday when it snows in Jerusalem. So he loved that. My kids learned how to ski when we were here too. So
oh, that's great. So they're not daunted by that. Like, we're going to hit winter at some point, and they're not going to be daunted by it.
No, they already have their snow gear.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I just need to get snowshoes, but that's
there'll be no shortage of places for you to find them when the time comes.
Snowshoes and cross-country skis. I grew up cross-country skiing, so I'm excited to ski again cross country.
That is excellent, and there again, no shortage of places around here that you can take part in that. A lot of parks, a lot of trails.
So maybe I'll go and I'll lead cross country skiing, and I'll sing when I'm cross country skiing, so people can have prayer and skiing. Maybe that's my new thing.
Spirituality while cross country skiing.
Yes, because you totally can physically distant on skis.
That's true. I mean, there's hope that maybe by December we won't, or by the winter we won't have to necessarily. But who knows? Who knows what that's going to look like?
Who knows? I'm hoping. I'm on your side. I'm hoping that we won't have to either.
Trying to try to take a positive view of it.
But if we do, I'm prepared to pray on skis. There you go.
That's there. Whatever, you're meeting the people where they are.
Exactly. Or ice skates. I could do ice skates too.
That would be fun too.
Mm-hmm. I'll go brush up on my ice skating, but yes.
No, I'm sure you could find a 6-year-old who could get you back up on skates.
Yeah, I think that actually Rabbi Lockett's his daughter is like a serious figure skater, so I already got her to.
Oh, she'll teach you, no problem.
She'll get me back up on skates.
That would be That would be fantastic. Well, Cantor Tamar Havilio, thank you for joining us. Last two questions before we let you go, though. What is your favorite Jewish food?
Oh my gosh, my favorite Jewish food. I would have to say my favorite Jewish food. It's not really Jewish food though. It's Israeli. It's
That's
Arabic.
fine.
It's like is people will call it Israeli salad, but it's Arabic salad. Do you know what I mean?
I do. So tell me what goes in. I think I know what you mean, but tell me what.
Well,
And it can be totally claimed for this. That's 100% fine. What goes into
okay,
it?
I have two Jewish. Okay, that so very fresh tomatoes. I use cherry tomatoes, but those small, cucumbers that are called Persian cucumbers,
Sure.
and red peppers, a little red onion, and lemon and salt. That's all. I don't even use olive oil. I learned that you don't even have to use olive oil. And that's it. That's my favorite Israeli Arabic food. But I also love a good potato knish.
So let me ask you, since we're sort of you veered us into this.
Yeah.
Can a food like that, can a potato knish, is that something you're able to find in Israel, or
No,
is there?
no.
Okay, this is an American Jewish food.
This is like Zabar's on the
Okay,
knish,
okay, got it,
Lower East Side knish.
got it. Okay,
You know what?
completely understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what is your favorite Jewish holiday?
Oh my gosh, you're asking Cantor what their favorite Jewish holiday
See, and I know that gets to be a little tricky when I talk to a clergy member, because you know, you I would imagine look at the holidays from a different place than
I have two Jewish.
most of us.
So my favorite Jewish holiday, really seriously, and I think everyone, this is a number one of so many people, is Pesach,
Mm-hmm.
Passover. I love everything about Passover, even the food. I just love it. Of course, I eat kipniot, but beans and rice and all that stuff. I would say Pesach, and I love Rosh Hashanah. I love the beginning of the new year and how and I love hearing the shofar. I love hearing the shofar in the streets during Elul, the month leading to Rosh Hashanah. And
Mm-hmm.
it's going to look very different this year, Rosh Hashanah, but I hope that we can bring the spirit of Rosh Hashanah to everybody's homes.
Well, I hope we can too. I agree it's going to be different, but hopefully, I'm very interested to see what all of the synagogues and clergy do to try to make the best of what is undoubtedly a rather strange situation, let's say.
Let's say it's just, yeah.
Well, Cantor Tamar Havilio, thank you so much for joining us. Mazel tov on your move and your new position at Bet Shalom, and welcome back to the Twin Cities community. We're thrilled to have you.
I'm thrilled to be here.
The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.